Howdy, and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. His name is Chase Caldwell, and his name is Hayden Garland. Boys, we are back. We are well rested, well fed after Thanksgiving week. How is everyone doing?
Swell.
Swole or swell, or both?
Yeah, more like swole up from all the food I've been eating. That's about it.
Yeah, I can relate.
I can't.
Oh yeah, we don't have to get into details about Hayden's situation, but just prayers for Hayden's well-being and not being able to enjoy Thanksgiving food. You know, it's kind of the worst time of year that you're not able to eat. So,
Yeah, no
I've
kidding.
had a lot of applesauce, Jello, and bananas in the past few days. It's been great.
Hey,
Yeah.
the brat diet. I grew up on the brat diet.
The brat diet. Shout out to
No-
Kendall for saying you probably need to stick to the brat diet.
Dude, I lived on the brat diet for like 10 years of my life. Bananas, rice, applesauce, and toast. In case you were wondering what the brat diet was, one person that's watching.
yeah,
Um,
those are good healthy foods.
yeah,
They're boring.
Yeah, that's true.
they're really good for your gastrointestinal system, you know.
Yeah,
But
we are
Not
proponents
too
of good gut
disruptive.
health on this podcast. So
yeah.
make sure our gut health is right.
When I was a kid, I used to, I lived on the brat diet for so long that like I would eat cheese toast. Like that was one of my things was cheese toast. And
Yeah.
I was like probably like 23 years old whenever I finally realized that cheese toast and grilled cheese were just the same thing.
Yeah, prepared the same way and everything.
Yeah. Like I just kind of figured like it's cheese toast. Am I making
Yeah.
cheese toast or am I making grilled cheese? Crazy.
Yep. Well,
Semantic.
unfortunately, that's the only food talk we're going to have today. But we are going to transition into our non-football topic of the week. Give some folks to hop in if they would like. Had to go make sure I shared our post on Facebook so people know that we're back, and if they scrolling by, they can hop in. But Chase brought up a good observation the other day that Goodyear just has an absolute chokehold on the blimp industry,
Total chokehold.
especially in terms of blimp advertising.
Yeah. Like, I mean, because it says like it's sponsored by the Goodyear blimp and then like immediately goes to the blimp with like the footage. Like, how do you replace that? Like, you can't replace that with a 747 going over slowly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And there's only like 10 blimps in the world. Well,
And Goodyear has like 4 of them.
yeah, you're kind of out on that. Like, some places say 10, some people say 25. So somewhere between 10 and 25 blimps is what exists in the world, the entire
And
world.
and Goodyear has like a sizable share of that.
Yeah,
of
of
that
course,
market.
of course. So like, if you were going to replace, let's say that you're like, hey, you know what? This year we want to be sponsored by Firestone. Like, what does Firestone have to offer to overtake Goodyear and
Not
to
a
be
blimp.
the national or the official tire of the college football system? You know what I mean?
I mean, they can go right at the blimp idea and they can have the Firestone hot air balloon. Doesn't have
Ooh,
the
what if-
same ring to it, but
What if they did drones? What if Firestone just like created this gigantic drone?
Yeah, that would actually be a pretty good adversary because I was going to point out that putting a camera, like a high quality camera, on the blimp was just like a stroke of genius. Like
Of
they
course.
can show the blimp. It's the blimp cam. They show the stadium from the blimp.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
They can be like, this blimp stormed Normandy. You know, like, do you not appreciate your veterans? That's a veteran up
Yeah.
there flying around filming your football games. Yeah. Whoever stroke of genius by those guys.
have y'all ever actually seen it in person, like flying above? I don't know if I've ever actually been able to catch it.
I feel like I've seen it at A&M. Am I mistaken? Like,
No, I
Honestly,
mean
I
it's
don't know.
definitely
Like,
been there. Don't get me
don't-
wrong, but I don't think I've ever looked up and seen it.
Like I feel like you're right. Like I know I for sure have seen the Oscar Mayer winner mobile. I've
Absolutely.
definitely seen like a few of the like Scooby Doo mobiles. Can't say that I've ever actually seen the Goodyear blimp. Like
I've
never
seen
been driving down the road and I'm like, there it is.
I've seen the Trojan biplane at Chili Fest. Yeah,
That'd be
Trojan.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what they are manufacturers of. But
I mean, not really, but
Horses,
well,
I think.
seller of them.
I thought the Trojans
Viruses.
didn't the Trojans didn't they produce horses?
Yeah.
I made
Yep,
that joke
they're,
twice.
Computer viruses, that is, not any other kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, blimps use helium, famously.
I don't think they do anymore.
I don't know if anybody knew that, but they do.
they do use helium. They used to use hydrogen, and that turned
Okay,
into the
okay,
whole
that's right.
Zeppelin event.
Completely
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Fun fact,
Helium is non-flammable, apparently.
Okay.
that's what you use to fill your balloons at a child's birthday party. I would hope that it's not explosive like helium or hydrogen. Fun fact, Goodyear blimp is manufactured by Zeppelin, so it's only a matter of time before it
There's some lead
Zeppelins
in it.
itself. Goes down like a lead balloon.
Yeah.
They're also super slow. They go like 35 miles an hour.
Really? That's actually faster than I would have guessed.
It says on average they can travel 150 to 200 miles in a day, which is like less than I can travel in a car in like 3 or 4 hours.
Nobody said that it was an efficient means of travel.
Yeah, but it is kind of cool.
So then that begs the question of like they have 3 bases in the US where they can store their blimps, and it's like one in Florida, one in like Ohio, and one in California. So those are on the edges of the country. Are these things taking like several day trips to get to these sporting events?
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, like it's
They
kind of
have
like
to
college
come
game
down,
day.
don't they?
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like I've never just seen one like flying over Waxahachie on its way to Arlington, you know? Like it would take like 3 days to get across Waxahachie, and I'd be seeing it the whole time. Like, oh, there it is.
It's still there.
It moved a little bit further.
it also flies over the Super Bowl. This thing is a marketing dream.
That's what I'm saying. Because like you could be like, hey, you know what? For this ad spot, we're gonna donate $1, and ESPN will be like, nah, dude. All right, fine. You can't use our blimp. All right. We'll give it to you for $1. We just want to use your blimp. You know?
I'm sorry, this is the last thing on blimps, and then we'll get on to real football stuff. But there's a Goodyear blimp exhibit at the College Football Hall of Fame.
What?
So I feel like that's relevant to our material. So yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, good for Goodyear. Great company, great tires. I'm guessing. I use Toyos, so
I think I've got some good years on. Somebody sponsor me.
yeah. I typically use BFG mud grips, but that's just me. Okay,
Gotta
that's
have
enough.
those for them big jobs.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough of that. So this past Saturday, I recently moved our old TV into our bedroom, which was my plan all along. Like, we got a new TV and put the Allwood in my office here where I record, and just left it there. And Brittany hates clutter. And then finally she was like, hey, can we put the TV in the bedroom? And I'm like, yes, we can. So Saturday we wake up, got a TV in my bedroom now. I can just roll over, grab the remote, turn on football, not leave bed. And I'm like, man, today's going to be a nice day, just a regular, college football, good day. And it was not normal by any means. I guess it's normal for this sport, but just total insanity and chaos just from the jump.
Yeah.
Turned on Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State drives down, on like gets the opening kick, drives down, scores. I'm like, man, they're about to run away with this. Good thing I picked them in my pick 'em, right? But didn't last long. Was kind of back and forth for a bit, and then Michigan just hit the gas there in the fourth quarter and just kind of blew them out. And that's now back-to-back blowouts for Michigan over Ohio State. They didn't beat them they beat them like once in 15 years or something crazy like that. Now they beat them emphatically 2 years in a row. So I don't know. I've come to the point where we'll talk about this in the playoff picture later, but Michigan can win a title this year. Like, I wouldn't have said that 4 weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good, but it's going to be Georgia or Ohio State, almost certainly. But right now, I mean, they're clicking, and I don't know why they couldn't. They're going to get in at number 2 probably, and I don't know. I feel like you're going to see Michigan in the title game again this year, and I don't know. Could be another one to their collection. Although it's been a while since they got one, I think so.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. They did really play a good game against Ohio State. I mean, it to your point, they seem to be playing on all levels of the game, like very efficiently, very good quality team. It would not surprise me if they could win the national championship. They're the type of team that it's a matter of don't make any mistakes against them, otherwise they're going to capitalize on it.
Right. And Georgia is, certainly a high quality team, but they're not as good as they were last year. There's no super team in football this year, which makes it really fun. Like,
right.
This is going to be the most interesting playoff that we've had in years, maybe since the very first one. But the way I see it, the way it is right now, the way I see it shaking out is the way they have it right now, and that's Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, and USC 4. I mean, who the hell had TCU in the playoff? Like, even 6 weeks ago. I mean,
nobody.
Like, all they did was just win all their games, and now I think even with a loss this weekend, they probably still sneak in there just because of what's happened elsewhere. But they were not a part of Upset Saturday. They crushed their opponent, Iowa State. So they did what they had to do. USC beat Notre Dame pretty good. Caleb Williams seems to be a lock for the Heisman now. So, but aside from that, we'll talk playoff here in a minute. But how about Clemson going down to South Carolina? Actually, forget Clemson. How about South Carolina beating top 10 teams in back-to-back weeks? Like, that is just phenomenal. I mean, if you're I know they're our bitterest of rivals and we hate their guts, but I mean, hats off to the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and I guess that's 3 preseason top 10 teams that they've beat.
It
took me longer than I care to admit to pick up what you were putting down.
I was trying to figure out how to work it in there, but I said, I'm just gonna leave it. We're done with that conversation. But apparently not.
3 in their last 10. It's pretty impressive. I mean, 3 in their last 6, whatever it is. But.
No, I mean, good for the Gamecocks. I did have, like, I wasn't buying them wholly at the beginning of the season, but like there was something about Shane Beamer like coming in that like really kind of created excitement around their program, and I feel like they've gotten better as the years progressed, and
that's for sure.
Yeah, he may prove to be a good coach for them on the long haul.
Yeah, and like I was really skeptical because he had never been a coordinator. Like, he was like a tight ends coach at Oklahoma when they hired him. And I'm like, that's like the last name, is familiar, but don't know much about him. But, went out and got some good transfers and Rattler and some other guys. And they're clicking right now. If I was a fan of a team that was going to a bowl game, of which I am not, I would not want to see South Carolina in a bowl game. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Who else? After that madness, that those games ended in about 5 minutes of each other. The Ohio State, Michigan, and Clemson, South Carolina. I guess we can talk about Clemson. Probably a topic for the off season, but yeah, I'm getting rid of any last shred of Clemson stock that I own. I mean, like the sell of all sells. Like,
Yeah.
get rid of it while you can because it's about to fall through the freaking floor. And in my opinion, which means very little, but I feel like this was kind of their last year of being in that upper tier, and they just aren't. Like they played a pretty soft schedule. They still got 2 losses. Their offense looks horrendous. DJ has not improved, and they're losing all their D linemen this year to the draft. So I think they're recruiting decent in this class, but the last 2 have not been on par. So Clemson, I mean, welcome back to the rest of the pack with everybody that's not Ohio State, Georgia, and Bama. you're one of us now.
Do you think though? Well, I wish they're bowl eligible. Do you think that there's been do you think we have a tendency to want Clemson to fall back down to reality just because they're not like for me personally, I would love to see any of the like high caliber teams just fall back down to be with the rest of us. But like I feel like there's at least some degree of where everybody's just annoyed at Clemson, so they just want them to fall back down. And it makes me wonder if A&M ever did get to prominence. That's
You're
how
exactly
everybody
right.
else is going to feel about us all the time.
Yeah. Because the way they treat us right now is how they treated Clemson before they won titles. They're like, oh, like you guys think you're all this and you're never going to win it. And you remember back when Clemsoning was a thing? Like,
Yeah.
the whole world would just wait on Clemson to lose again. They're like, oh, you're going to Clemson again. Like, and then they finally broke through. But I have a disdain for Dabo.
Yeah, I think
Which-
a lot of people do.
Which, I think I probably have a disdain for most college football coaches. And not to defame the profession, but as evidenced by Auburn's most recent coaching hire, several of them are not good people. That's on the docket. Don't worry, we'll get into that later.
And I can't wait to talk about that one.
Yeah. But like I think I have that disdain for Clemson. It's not because they don't belong. Like I think anyone that's got the resources and the want to, like I think they belong in the picture if they want to be there and they go out and win games. But I think my disdain comes from not just Dabo, but they feasted off of a super weak conference for years, and they had good teams, but like even the first year they won the championship, they lost to like Syracuse or somebody. And like, man, if you play against a Big Ten or SEC schedule, you may have 2 losses a year instead of the one to Syracuse or whoever it was.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I think in my unbiased opinion, I think they could. There's something wrong with their offense. Like they lost both coordinators and then just promoted the guys they had, and they're not getting it done. So Dabo's going to have to go somewhere else, kind of like Jimbo. Like, hey, what we do doesn't work. Let's find someone who can come in here and fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I like Cade Klubnik. I think it's been speculated that DJ will transfer. So Cade's probably their guy for the next couple of years. I think he's awesome, but I think they're going to be more closer to what A&M has been in the past, except for this year, the past few years, instead of what they were, previously. But
yeah, and I'm just curious, just because like you said, welcome back to the rest of the pack, and that made me think like, here they've been on the stretch of 10, maybe 15 years now of just being like really good.
yeah,
And that still wasn't enough to really vault them into blue blood status.
Right.
You know, to where that now it's like, okay, well, you're back to being normal Clemson. You know, and like if we went on a stretch, like I would give anything to go on Clemson's stretch.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
for the next 15 years, and then if we, fell off of it, then everybody's like, well, it's back to being A&M, like versus if that happens to Alabama, it's like, whoa, Alabama has a bad year.
Yeah.
It's like no big deal.
But I think
uh,
I don't really know very many Clemson fans, but I would assume that they probably got used to this, and they're like, oh, like we're the same as Bama or Georgia or Ohio State. Like we're just going to be like this forever. And 3 years ago, like I was still kind of projecting them to be in that group. Like they had just beaten Bama for the title, like by a pretty good margin. They went out and signed DJ, who was, a 5-star quarterback. I'm like, oh, like they had Deshaun, they had Trevor, now they're going to have DJ. He's going to be awesome. Well, then he wasn't. And then, like, they kept their coaches intact for like 5 years, and then they left. And then they didn't have a plan for that. And like what they did was really, really, awesome. They won 2 titles. I'd cut off a limb for that. But like, where do they go from here? I don't really know. Like, they could go make. It's kind of like us right now. We can go make a great hire, at the at the play caller spot, and then we're back in it. And then and they're back in it next year. But it's definitely an interesting storyline, and that's what I like about this year. This playoff. We'll see how the games shake out this weekend, but if it was this weekend, you would not have Ohio State, Alabama, or Clemson, or Oklahoma, or Notre Dame in the playoff, and that's fun. Like, I wish it was us, taking one of their spots, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. But to your point about Dabo, though, to me, the weirdest thing that I think I've ever seen in college football is Dabo like running out on the field every game.
Yeah.
The way he like just sprints on the field, to me, that is so weird. And I realize I'm an A&M fan, so there's a lot of stuff that we do that's weird, but that to me is like, okay, like imagine Nick Saban doing that.
Yeah.
Just dead ass sprint, just
I think
running.
I think PJ Fleck does some of that too.
I can see that.
Yeah, they're kind of cut from the same cloth. I like PJ though.
Yeah.
A couple other important games. I don't know if you guys got to see Florida State. That was an awesome game to watch.
I did.
Two great quarterbacks just dueling it out. 45-38 final. Florida State has a good team this year. I know. Like there's a few teams in college football that I hate. I find it hard to hate Florida State anymore. Like, I know they hate us. They hate us. Like they hate Jimbo. Like they will go out of their way to dog Jimbo and dog A&M. But I got to tip my cap. Like I like their coach. I like Mike Norvell. I like what they did. Like what they've done this year. They have a good football team. So props to them. We'll see if they can work their way back. 5-7 years ago, they were the blue blood. Like they were, in contention year in and year out. So, I think, it's moving towards, there's going to be more teams in the mix, year in and year out, and maybe some more parity, if you will.
Yeah.
Had to work that word in there.
Sure.
Texas beat Baylor. Hey, Texas has had a good season. But but there's a caveat. It was good. Like they won 8 games. That's more than we've won, and that's all well and good. What I will caution against all off season is that they were good because of Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. Like if you watch any of their games, especially the ones that they actually won, those guys are fantastic running backs, especially Bijan. I think he'll be a first-round pick, which is pretty rare these days for a running back. Yeah, I'll save it for the offseason, but good season for Texas. Their fans are not happy at all. I've got a Longhorn cousin that I've sat next to at Thanksgiving. He's like, yeah, I just want to hang on to Sark until we sign Arch and then fire him and hire somebody else. I was like, it probably won't turn out that way, but I feel your pain.
Well, and they're notorious for being very impatient. So I'm sure that's pretty across the board. Oh, it's 8-4. It's not a good enough season. Well, remember that whenever you tweeted us for, oh, y'all are 5-7. Ha, ha, ha. Because I don't know. It's so funny to me that like how things always tend to shake out the way they do between Texas and Texas A&M, that like it's so paralleled. I don't know, like everything that Texas fans are saying about us right now, we said about them last year, but they don't see it that way. We don't see it that way, and it's like it was literally that way. Like we gave them so much grief for going 5-7 and not going to a bowl game.
It's
and
the,
then they
it's the Spider-Man meme.
They gave us so much. Yeah, it really is. They gave us so much grief for going 8-4, and then now we're doing the same thing to them. Whatever.
I've been keeping my mouth shut. We're 5-7.
Yeah, I've kept my mouth shut when we're 8-4, honestly, and wish we were 8-4 right about now.
Yeah,
I'll take 6-6.
Hey, I'm just here to provide unbiased analysis of
sure
of certain college football teams. But I mean, I think the portal is going to be interesting for both of our teams. We may tackle that definitely in later episodes, but even later today when we get to the A&M stuff. But like Hudson Card, their quarterback, he's in the portal already, which rightfully so. I mean, they are going to roll with Ewers and Arch when he comes in. So, Card's I bet he finds a good spot. I think he's a good player. They're really worried about Worthy leaving, their star receiver. A lot hasn't happened yet, and I'm not saying that it is, but there's a lot of talk that he's going to bolt to USC perhaps. But we'll talk about that when it gets here. But the last game I want to get to is Oregon. Oregon blew a 31-10 lead to Oregon State in the formerly named Civil War. I don't know what they call it now, but it used to be called the Civil War rivalry. But this was on our pick'em, and I had Oregon, and they were up 31-10. They only had to win by 4 or more. I'm like, oh, this is in the bag. Like, there's no way they're going to blow this. And there was some crazy stat. I have to credit Cover 3 here, but on Oregon State's last 4 or 5 drives, they didn't throw a pass. They just straight ran the ball down Oregon's throat and just kicked their ass in the last half of the game. And I mean,
Oregon State did a little bit of that this year because didn't they almost beat USC as well?
They did.
There was another team that they almost beat.
I mean, they're ranked 21.
It was USC because it was right at the very. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, Oregon State's about to beat USC. Like,
yeah.
And I don't remember how it played out in the last couple seconds of the game, but I mean they had a pretty good year for an Oregon State team.
They went 9-3.
Yeah.
They
lost by 9-3.
They lost by 3 to USC, by 3 to Washington. Utah beat them pretty bad, but that was on the road, and they beat everybody else.
Yeah.
They beat their biggest rival.
Good for them.
In a crazy comeback. So, way to go, Beavs. I'm kind of excited for bowl season this year. There's going to be some cool matchups. There's a lot of above average teams this year. And it's not one of them, but there's a bunch of them out there, and it's going to make for some good bowl matchups. But real quick, college football playoff, just general thoughts here. I've got the rankings pulled up. That's collegefootballplayoff.com. I've got to say, their helmets look really good. Not as good as the ones that Chase made, but these are good-looking helmets.
Let me pull it up so I can see what you're
But your
looking
top
at.
four, and I think this is pretty fair. Georgia 1, Michigan 2, TCU 3, USC 4, Ohio State at 5, and then Alabama 6. So, two of the big boys still hanging around. If someone falters, Ohio State could still sneak in there. I think it really just comes down to USC. I think if TCU were to lose, they're probably in still because they played K-State and they beat them already. So, but USC, gets a shot at Utah, the one team that beat them this year, only beat them by 1 point, on a 2-point conversion late in the game. So they get redemption, and I don't know. I think this is how it works out. Like I don't think any of these teams lose this weekend. And even if TCU loses, it won't affect the top four. So, any thoughts on these potential matchups, or do we think it stays this way after this weekend?
And honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you could run a whole lot of different scenarios on how it could shake up the whole playoff picture on what comes out of this weekend. But I like the 4 teams that are on there. I would love to see that as the playoff, because there's a good bit of difference there from what we've seen in the past. So I'm all about leaving those 4 up there,
Yeah.
So I kind of, for the first time in the history of this podcast, I would love for no parity this weekend. But
just all chalk.
Yeah, just whatever. Leave everybody exactly where they're at, and we're good.
I'm really intrigued by Georgia USC in that potential matchup.
Yeah.
Because I think the one kryptonite for Georgia's defense is a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who's more than likely the number 1 overall pick in 2024. They got some great receivers, Jordan Addison, Mario Williams. I don't know if they can stop Georgia when Georgia runs the ball, because their O-line and backs are pretty dang good, and they still have Brock Bowers. I don't know. That's a really interesting matchup. It's kind of, I don't know. I bet the spread wouldn't be more than a touchdown if I had to guess. I feel like that'd be a pretty competitive game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to dog TCU here. I think Michigan could potentially beat them pretty bad. Not that they will for sure, but Michigan just seems like a team that's on a mission right now, and
yeah,
their defense is playing outstanding. But hey, TCU has a hypnotizing frog on their side, so
Hypnotoad.
That thing's
also,
crazy.
I just thought about this. There's been some weird voodoo going on with TCU where every team they play, they're playing the backup quarterback for that team. It's happened in like 10 out of their 12 games.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. If that happens to Michigan, if Michigan's starter gets hurt, their backup, who started for them last year, entered the portal this week. So I'm assuming he's not on the team. I guess he could be.
Yeah, he probably still would be.
You think so?
Yeah.
I would imagine
It-
it's more like a notice of intent, like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
gone, but
It opens
'Cause
up
you-
his recruiting, but he ultimately could just stay
Yeah.
there.
Recruitment's still open.
Recruitment open. No interviews, please.
I just thought that was I'm sure he is still there. It'd be, man, that'd be pretty sorry to just leave your team the week of the Big Ten championship and potential playoff.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
But so that's something to file away. But I guess the last thing I'll say about this is, I've kind of had hard eyes for Ohio State this year. Going back to the preseason, and they're just not it. Like they've let me down. I'm not a Ohio State fan by any means, but they just have so many weapons on offense that I wanted to see the peak Ohio State offense against, this Georgia defense and
Mhm.
just see what that looked like. And we're not going to get it because Ohio State stinks and they cannot beat Michigan, and they officially have a Michigan problem. But
See, I think that's where I disagree with you a little bit on the fact that if TCU loses, I think they'll slip Ohio State in there. If USC loses, they're going to be out and Ohio State's in. But I think if TCU loses, I think they'll put TCU at 5 or 6, and slip Ohio State back in there, but to
Man.
give people the opportunity to witness Georgia, Ohio State, and then potentially a rematch in the championship game.
of Ohio State, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
God,
The storyline's there, man. I just wrote it for you.
it's all about the money.
Unfortunately, yes. And
Yeah.
they have a big market.
Yeah, I can't imagine the ratings. God. Or if you somehow got USC versus Ohio State, like two huge brands. Man, I really hope Chase comes back. We got.
I'm hearing everything that y'all are saying. I don't know if you can hear me, but my video is going bonkers right now.
Sorry, we got the gear of death there for a second.
Yeah. Well, it was like way lagging behind, and I was like frozen for a bit, and then
Yeah.
I got the loading gear, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're getting caught up now.
Yeah.
Let's close out our national topics with some coaching changes. I do want to say that most of the ones that have taken place so far, I'm a really big fan of. There's one, not so much. But maybe we'll do that one last. But I think Wisconsin hiring Luke Fickell. For those unaware, Luke Fickell has been the Cincinnati head coach for a while. Obviously took them to the playoff last season. He's turned down other Big Ten jobs. Like he turned down Michigan State and some places like that. Some people think he kind of got screwed last year by making the playoff and missing out on LSU, USC, Florida, Oklahoma. Like all the big ones opened up last year, and he was like, well, I got this playoff team. I can't really bail on. Notre Dame opened up. Yeah, I think he's an awesome coach. I think Wisconsin, could have just hired the DC that they had there as interim. Former player, bright defensive mind, but I think you're going to see this, especially in the future when these new TV deals kick in. But the Big Ten and the SEC are going to consistently have the best coaches, and Wisconsin has not been a team that just like spends a lot of money. Like, they don't go out and hire the Jimbo Fisher or the Brian Kelly. Like they, have a good coach. They have a good team. They never really compete for it all. But now they're like, hey, we're going to go get a new coach. We're going to up our NIL, up our transfer game. And watch out for the Badgers. I think it's a fantastic hire, but
I'm sorry, I don't mean to change the subject, but I just can't get over my videos just like way behind. It's moving in slow motion.
yeah,
Just looks like I'm just like staring at the stars. I don't really know what's going on with it.
look at him go.
Slowly gazing like this is a slow-mo like
Celine Dion
photo
playing.
shoot.
Here in just a minute, you're gonna see me smile and just start laughing in slow motion from what I just did, like just now. But it is what it is. So,
Yep.
sorry for the two of you watching. Don't know what's going on there, but for those who may be listening, let's get on track. Let's talk Auburn, Will.
Okay.
I've got to,
Are the people aware of what Auburn has done? They went full Auburn, and you never go full Auburn.
Yeah, have you ever seen a coaching hire under as much scrutiny as Auburn's coaching hire? Like, I can't think of another one that was just so absolutely hated from the jump.
Well,
I mean-
tell the people at home who they hired and why we hate him.
Okay,
that's
so
fair.
they hired Hugh Freeze. If that sounds familiar, he was the Ole Miss coach. if you have any evidence of infractions, please send them to whatever it is at olemiss.edu. Compliance at olemiss.edu. That guy, and then got fired for texting a female escort on his company phone that the state of Mississippi paid for. Was fired and then hired by Good Christian University, Liberty, where he's been for the past few years. Look, I get it. The guy beat Bama twice when he was at Ole Miss, and that's all Auburn gives a shit about. They're like, let's get somebody in here that can beat Bama. We don't care if we go 1-11.
Well, that's got to be their only thought process, right? Because, like, I mean, he's a decent coach, but he's not the best coach in the nation, you know?
I'll put it this way. I think he can thrive in the portal and NIL era.
Yeah.
Because he was doing it at Ole Miss.
Yeah. I just the optics of the whole thing is just terrible. Like, how do you even come off of that, you know?
I joked about this with Kyle Quinn like a few months ago. We're like, yeah, like I'm sure they want to hire him, but that's not going to happen. They're not going to actually hire him. The SEC won't allow it. But turns out Auburn does not care, and they're going to do what they want to do. And yeah, that's what they did.
Apparently now my phone is just not connected for some reason.
Yeah.
But that's okay, guys. We'll get there.
I'm just glad I can still hear you. I don't know if I was unsure if you were there or not, so I'm glad that you're there.
Yeah, I'm still here. I just my camera's just going haywire. Yeah, I look forward to the day, and I don't know if the day will ever come, but where a team will just be like, yeah, we fired this coach because we just didn't like how good he was playing. And then we're going to hire this other coach because we think he can win.
Yeah.
Instead of they went on this witch hunt against Brian Harsin to try and show that it was because of cause, and that he was potentially having an affair. So we're going to hire this guy that
who publicly
definitely did
have
an affair with an escort on a government paid phone. Like,
maybe they didn't come up in the background check.
Well, another interesting side note to this is that Auburn hired the Mississippi State AD a few weeks back, who, when Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss, said Mississippi State AD was definitely doing some research into what Hugh Freeze was doing at Ole Miss. Not that we weren't all well aware, but he probably knows things that we don't know about Hugh Freeze. But, whenever we were there for that game, I was trying to explain to our group, like, I like Auburn. I really do. I think it can be a really good job, but they're never going to get out of their own way. Like, the boosters run that thing, and what they say goes. And when there's fights among the boosters, that's when it gets real messy. And that's kind of what you saw when they first even hired Harsin. They tried to hire Kevin Steele. Mm-hmm. That was a huge mess. And they tried to get Harsin fired for, some unsavory things that they said he did, which turns out I don't think he did. Then they go hire Hugh Freeze, who's got a long history of bad behavior. But hey, if he wins, no one's going to care.
That's right. And that's where, like, that is a super risky hire, because if he doesn't win, everybody's going to care. Everybody's going to make a huge deal about it. If he wins, nobody will. So it's like, I mean, they're going all out on it. It's like, okay, let's just hope it works, and we'll see. I don't know. I don't think I would have enough faith in him to pull the trigger on that, especially if you're Auburn. Like, I feel like if you were like West Virginia, or somebody like that that's not really in the SEC, but you're really trying to get something going. Like that'd be one thing. And then maybe if he played, or maybe if he coached at a couple other Power 5 teams prior to coming to back to the SEC, it's one thing. But I mean, if you're Auburn and you're giving him that first opportunity, that's super risky.
It was, I think their first choice was Lane Kiffin, and he turned him down to, he got a raise at Ole Miss, but like neither one of these people are good people. Like I don't think Lane or Hugh are, great human beings. They're great coaches, and in the SEC, it just means more, and that is the bottom line for programs like Auburn and programs like A&M for that matter, and Alabama, and literally everyone else in the SEC and or Big Ten, or future members of those conferences.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just wish teams would just be like, yeah, we hired him because we think he'll win.
Yeah.
We don't really care about whether he's a good guy or not.
Yeah.
So what if he's a bad guy? We're gonna hire him.
Yeah. You think so-and-so's a good culture fit? I don't know. Didn't ask him. Ask him how good of a coach he is. I mean, we crapped all over Brian Kelly in culture fit, and he's got his team in the West.
Yeah, that's true.
In the West, in the SEC title game. Which brings us
he also lost to a 4-7 team.
Which brings us to the A&M portion of the show. This felt pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Like, forget a bowl game. Forget whatever it was, 6 straight losses. Forget all that. Forget the ugly ass UMass game. We whooped number 5 LSU, who I hate, by the way. I was telling Brittany the other day, I have a hate meter. My hate meter is Texas, and then LSU is right behind them, and then everybody else.
Man,
I can't stand them. I hate LSU.
Will the good egg.
when we play them, like, there's something about seeing our jersey go against their jersey that makes me furious and wants to beat them,
Yeah,
and to pretty much ruin their hopes at a playoff berth. They would have still had to beat Georgia, but now if they beat Georgia, it doesn't matter. They're not getting in. So, and this was not a great A&M team. Like, let's be honest. Like we were on one leg here at the end of the year, and props to our guys and our coaches for not throwing in the towel with one game left against a great opponent, and coming out and getting the job done.
Yeah, I this is definitely the brightest spot of the whole season, I would say. Even including like the other wins we had. I mean, the oink doink, great. We won by accident.
That one didn't feel good at all, to be honest.
Beating Miami, and then
that didn't feel good either.
Turning into whatever. I mean, it just so this was the one and only good quality win that we deserved to win based on how we played, and it just happened to be to the number 5 team in the nation. So, and on the last game of the year. So it's not like the first game of the year where they're ranked number 5 or number 6 and end up going 5-7. It's they earned that spot, and we took it from them. So that's a good true win. Definitely understand the excitement from Ags, because I definitely feel the same way. Was excited. Don't know necessarily that rushing the field was the best idea. However, like I don't know if I'm getting soft in my old age or what, but like I hate the whole idea of like act like you've been there before. Like, no, don't. I mean, how many times are you going to get a win like that? Like, don't act like you've been there before. Have fun, enjoy yourself, and be excited that your team won. There's nothing wrong with that. I will say, as a former equipment manager, I don't see the point of ever rushing the field. That just doesn't. That does nothing for me. Like, oh yeah, we won. I'm running down there. Like that doesn't really. It is cool to see on cameras, but it's super risky. There's things get stolen and you put players in a bad position, and just everything in general is just, in panic mode. But I would say, like, I understand why. Like, it was just a release that everybody needed of, like, oh, thank God we finally did it. But I would say
it was
this.
also a premature release because they jumped down there before the game was over.
Well,
Yeah,
the game was
well-
over, and Brian Kelly called that stupid timeout.
Yeah, that was Bush League.
Yeah, but they were. I think A&M definitely has to, like, really discourage that. Which, I mean, Rush Bjork's already come out and said don't do that, or we shouldn't have done that, whatever. But we have to really defend that because we basically get a pass and a grace on that $250,000 fine every week that we win with our freshmen going and tackling the yell leaders. So, like, if we do that too many times, we may put that at risk to where we can no longer do that.
I had never even thought about that.
Yeah, because we're basically given that's okay that y'all do that because it's y'all's tradition. We'll let you do it, but you have to abide by these rules.
Right.
So the more that if we're going to rush the field every time we beat a top 5 team, that's not good. That's going to eventually go away. We're going to lose that tradition. So I don't want to lose that tradition personally. So I kind of think, you know what? Have fun with it. Enjoy it. Enjoy it at Northgate. Don't do it on the field, But, it is what it is. I'm not going to tell people what to do. It's a free country.
Yeah. So are you a proponent of like no more rushing the field at A&M?
I think so. Yeah. Unless we went 12-0,
Right.
And I even, like, I was there for Bama. I was there for LSU. So I was just excited as everybody else, but I turned around and left. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at me, I'm better. But I just don't feel like I would get anything out of being in this mass crowd on Kyle Field.
Yeah.
It's messing up the playing surface. It's putting players at risk. You're putting people at risk of a pissed off LSU player punching them or hitting them or running into them. We've seen that a lot this year in college football.
Yeah, we have.
With Tennessee doing that and like other teams doing that. I saw a video on Twitter today of a guy going and stealing an Ole Miss helmet. At the Ole Miss Arkansas game.
Yeah.
So like that happens, and like we have this protocol of like, we have our post game protocol of what we do. That we would have to get in panic mode right beforehand to get all of the helmets and stuff off beforehand. Because I mean, those helmets are in today's day and age, they're perfectly fitted to that player.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just like, oh, well, everybody gets a helmet and everybody gets a ball and all that. And then, oh, you get a jersey and you get a jersey. Well, we got a game next week. Well, we don't in this case, but so I'm just not a big proponent of rushing the field anyways.
Yeah.
But that's just me personally. For A&M side, it's like, hey, let's not act like we've been there before. Let's have fun with it, but let's keep our traditions intact. And I think that could put our tradition of tackling the yell leaders at risk.
Yeah.
I think rushing the field has become so much more common this year. I feel like
I feel like the same way. Yeah.
So I think it was like it was a weird year of like where we had everybody, all the big games, I guess the underdog or the little guy finally, like Tennessee when they beat Bama.
I think Oregon State did it last weekend.
Yeah.
Wouldn't shock me. I mean, they've been happening all over the place. I think Mississippi State. Oh, no, that wouldn't happen that way. I don't know. It happened all over the season. It just was super common, and I think it got set in place. I don't know, maybe early this season or late last season, and then it becomes one of those things where it's like, oh well, they did it. Well, now we're going to do it, and
I feel like it's more of like
reaction.
Like fans are like waiting for that game to be able to justify it.
I think this is one of those games too. It's always got to be one of those games where there's all the hype around it, right? It's like we didn't rush the field against UMass. I think the team and the coaching staff actually would have outnumbered us and been able to remove us from the playing surface had they chosen to.
Yeah.
But when there's all this hype and build up and tension, like you're saying, that release at the end of just a terrible season, beating a top 5 team at your home stadium during rivalry week, that's a good example of why too. What Tennessee beating Bama, that's a good reason to, after they had their dry streak. I mean, there's some good reasons for sure, but I think it's been played out over the year. Maybe it just was because there were, like I said, a lot of those games that happened this year.
Yeah,
and I needs to be special to me.
Yeah, I don't fault anybody for wanting to, and I don't fault anybody that did, because I mean it was fun. It was a fun game we got our angst out. That was great, but yeah, it can come with some penalties that's what I'm more concerned with than anything else. I don't care about 250,000. Nobody does. We know that we'll figure out a way to pay it.
Pocket change.
It's more of like I don't want them to begin to threaten our traditions.
Sure.
From that. And there's a similar deal when it comes to Mississippi State, where like there's a rule in the SEC that you can't use artificial noisemakers leading up to like the snap. So like whenever they're snapping the ball, so like you'll notice like our music stops like right before the other team snaps the ball. Mm-hmm. And so Mississippi State, if you go visit there, they'll have a lot of stuff throughout the game, like be respectful with your noisemakers, because they know if they violate that rule too much, that eventually the SEC is going to crack down on them and say, no more cowbells, which to me wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah. But let's talk about the game. Let me say.
I do want to read Sutton's comment. I've got it on the video here.
Okay.
But South Carolina fans stormed the field. They were at Clemson, so they stormed their rivals' field after beating them. Love that. I mean,
I think is a little bit more fun.
Would hate if it happened to us, but man, like South Carolina hadn't beaten them in since like 2013 probably or longer.
Yeah.
Good for them going up there. And it's double because like Clemson storms their own field after every game, like even if they beat UMass or somebody like that. Like,
yeah.
So South Carolina was like, well, we're going to come beat you and storm your field. So
storming somebody else's field is on a whole other level. I like that a lot. Does
ultimate alpha move.
Does Clemson incur the fine for that, or is that South Carolina? Because it's a double whammy right there.
Either way, it's just the state taxpayers.
Yeah. There's so many angles to that. That's awesome.
But yeah, let's talk the game, because so I took one of my really good friends, Vernon, with me. His son is a freshman in high school, big time LSU fan. They're from Louisiana originally, and so it was me and Vernon and his son and nephew, and we went, and it was really cool to take them, because like to some degree I didn't think that we were going to win that game, so I really wasn't all that concerned, but like it was cool to me to take these kids to their first LSU game, and they were having a blast with it until we started winning, and then they were just miserable. And I felt bad for them. Like I started kind of, I don't know why I felt this way. I think it's just because they're young kids, at their first LSU game. But there wasn't going to be a loser to me. It was like, okay, if A&M loses, like no big deal. They got to see an LSU win. That was fun, and if we won, then heck yeah, we just beat LSU, so it was kind of a win-win situation for me. But Vernon's a big football fan. He didn't necessarily follow, the SEC religiously. I think he's more of an NFL fan more than a college football fan. But we went up probably third quarter, and we went to get some free birds, and so we're standing in line. We're watching it on the TV, and Vernon turns to me. He was like, "Man, y'all got some fight. Y'all got some dogs." He's like, "Y'all are 4-7.
We got that dog
playing us like that." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I like this." So they were very impressed, and he made several comments about just how packed Kyle Field was. I mean, because you know how my seats are kind of funky to where like they're one in front of the other, and normally on most games we can kind of shift around and still sit together, but this was so packed we couldn't, and that was cool to me, especially when we're 4-7. You know, I made the same comment about the Miami game, how packed it was. Really was like, oh yeah, this is what Aggie football is about, and so to take somebody that hadn't been following us all season, and then for him to say what I was already kind of thinking, was really neat, because that's what I gleaned most from this game was we had no reason to play our hearts out there. You know, we had no reason for Achane to come back after an injury, and we had no reason for them to play the way that they played, but yet they did. And so that to me was the biggest impression of, okay, these guys, you know, that goes back to the whole idea of the players want it way more than we do, and they always will. But, you know, for the people who are really down on our coaching staff and down on our players too, to watch that and see that they put on that show after an abysmal season, that's something to be said, you know.
Yeah.
And I come off of this. If you've been listening to the show all season, then you know that I said coming into it, the floor for me is 10 wins. And if we don't hit 10 wins, I'm going to be very disappointed in the team. I'm going to be very critical on the team. I think I've been plenty critical on the team, you know, this season, and I'm still critical. I'm very disappointed on how the season turned out. But if there's any confidence I'm going to glean from that win, it's that, man, we do have some fight in us, and we do have some players who are going to fight for it no matter what. And I think Jimbo has to be pushing the whole, y'all are young, learn the lessons from this, and let's do it better next year. And I feel like I saw a lot of that on Saturday.
Yeah, it's man, I'm with you 100% on all that. You know, that's kind of why like I was so positive after the last time we recorded was after the South Carolina loss going into Florida, and I was still it was after the Ole Miss loss, pardon. But I was still so positive because like we were playing hard. Like, you know, Connor had finally, you know, gotten into the game and or gotten his first start, looked awesome. Evan Stewart, Moose were doing things. And the guys on defense were still playing hard. Like, this was not a lot of teams in the situation would have quit after that game. They definitely would have quit after the Florida game when half the team missed with the flu. And that's just like, I'm kind of glad we just got all of our bad luck out in this year. Like, hey, if we're going to have 20 guys out with the flu and 30 more with injuries and and just this disaster of a season, just do it all in one. Like, let's save our good luck for next year or like other years when we're, you know, might have a shot at something. But I think that's a testament to the culture and to the players themselves. Like, you know, young guys and the old guys. Like the old guys, this is their last game in college. I mean, Achane potentially could be his last game as an Aggie, and you know, he could have, you know, sat out and said, no, like I can't go. I'm gonna, you know, rest up, get ready for the combine or whatever if he chooses to go that route. But he's like, no, like I'm gonna play this last game. Like we're playing number 5 LSU, and it's a Kyle Field, and I'm gonna be there. Like I'm not gonna miss a game. So I think that is just super noble and impressive, and makes me proud to root for the team. And that's kind of why it's why we do this. That like we love our school, and you know, I see so many of our players mention the 12th man, and I feel like it's almost a cliche, but like that's real. Like this is a really, really good fan base, and like the 12th man has shown up for pretty much every game the past 2 years, you know, if we were good or bad, you know, like
past 100 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say that I'm gonna do a shameless plug here. If you haven't watched Standing Room Only on the 12th Man app, go watch it tonight. It is very, very, very good. It's got several of like almost everybody that spoke in it are people that I know. Leisha Mullins from the Museum of the American GI was in there. The Fred McClure was in there. I mean,
Nice.
Mike and Johnny, and I mean, there was a lot of really Lisa Kalmus, who is the curator at the Corps of Cadets Museum. So it was really cool for me because like I knew almost everybody personally that was on there, and I'm like, these are all like people from my time at A&M. So really, really neat history. You need to watch it. But I'm going to make a point here. We mentioned earlier about how Texas was 5-7 last year. Do you know another notable team that was 5-7 last year?
Who was it?
TCU Horned Frogs. So here we are talking about TCU being number 3 after going 5-7 last year. It's very doable. And I think with the talent that we have, if I'm Jimbo, if I'm this coaching staff, I'm pointing at that. I'm like, why can't that be you next year? You know, like we've got the talent. Y'all, you've learned a lot of lessons at a really young age, you know, because we have so many freshmen. Let's turn this thing around big time next year. Let's go for it all next year. There's no reason that we can't, because TCU did it this year. You know, I mean, it's we're not looking back 10 years ago and saying, well, TCU in 2012 did it. It's this year they did it, you know, and so it's very possible. I mean, I would be glad to hire their offensive coordinator and just, you know, he did it last year, you know.
Yeah.
But
maybe even more extreme is USC. I think they were 4-8, and obviously new coach did yeoman's work in the transfer portal. Obviously got a stud quarterback out of the portal. I think you have a stud quarterback here. I think you have some really good weapons. There's things like, trust me, I am locked and loaded, ready to be the conductor of the hype train all offseason.
Yeah, sure.
But there's things we got to see. Like, I can't sit here today and be like, oh, yeah, like we're going to bounce back, you know, in full force. Like, there's steps that need to be taken. And, you know, one of them is changes on offense. We saw the other day, Daryl Dickey relieved of his duties. Not the play caller, but that opens things up to make additions to the staff. And I think you see some other names that of the coaching staff that won't be here. I was really hoping that by today's episode, we'd have someone announced. And I checked TexAgs like 5 minutes ago. There's not a new one yet, but, so I don't want to get you too excited. But CoStag, my primary source on these sorts of things, just posted, hey, Billy, I feel like you have something you want to tell us. Wink face. So if something breaks, I know you guys have obligations. I have obligations, you know, later this week and weekend, but may have to be like, hey, as soon as we can get back on the podcast, let's sit down and record something, because that's the biggest issue that we're facing right now is offensive identity and play caller. And I don't know who it's going to be. I know there's some names out there that are very exciting. But I don't want to spread any false rumors on here. So we're just going to wait till it's announced. And I really do think it's going to be something that we're happy with. And that's the first step, right? You get that, you know, I think the LSU game and winning it the way you did, and that game being your last game, like, now you have the momentum. Like, you don't have to go lose a bowl game and lose all that momentum. Like, you're done.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, also that, like, when I first heard Jimbo say this, I wasn't on board with it, but now I kind of get it just because of the different injuries. But someone asked him, if you were invited to a bowl bid as a 5-7 team, would you take it? And he said, absolutely not. I was like, well, you want the practices, right? But then I think about, you know, a guy like Trey Zoon, who has played the entire year with a dislocated kneecap. Like, that guy needs to get in rehab, like for his injuries. And and get healthy, and start working towards next year. Like, this team doesn't need 15 more practices. They're already beat to hell. Like,
Yeah.
let's get our folks healthy. Let's get our coaches on the recruiting trail, and let's go win it all next year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I mean I'm glad you brought up USC because there you go. There's 2 teams out of 4 that had the same record, if not worse than us this year.
50%.
So there's no reason to be yeah, this 50%
Wow.
math.
Big
There's
if
no
true.
reason. There's no reason to be hanging our head, but we do need to have some expectations. I think what we really need to do this year that I haven't seen since Jimbo's first year is hit that transfer portal. I mean, that's where you're seeing a lot of these teams really succeed, and we just hadn't really done it the past couple of years. Yeah, we had an outstanding recruiting class the past couple of years, but look at we picked up Sternberger in the recruiting or in the transfer portal the first year, and there was somebody else that we picked up that first year of Jimbo that was just really good as a transfer. And so I think we need to hit that ourselves. And I know that we're going to have some transfers. I don't think it's going to be this mass exodus that everybody keeps talking about. They can pitch it that way all they want to, but I think we need to have some transfers so that we can get some transfers in,
Yeah.
and so I think you're going to see some of that, but that's okay. I mean, I think if we can get some good players at some good positions, some positions of need, then I think that's the key to this offseason. Get coaches in positions of need, get players in positions of need from the transfer portal, and I think we can end up with a really exciting year.
Yeah.
Or a really exciting offseason going into next year.
Yeah, and I think that, like, for the sake of A&M, absolutely, but for the sake of content for this podcast, those developments are going to be things that we break down here, and
Sure.
it's talking season now, so we're going to do some talking. And I do want to add, like, the portal was pretty wild last year. This year is going to double what it was last year. Like, you're going to see just absolute madness in the portal this year. Like, everyone gets a 1 year, no take backs, no harm, no foul kind of thing. NIL is really ramped up. Like, most of the guys that we've lost, and probably the guys that we will lose, wouldn't be big contributors next year for us anyway. And it's no disrespect to them, but it's best for both parties. Like, they get to go somewhere they can get playing time. We get room to bring some other guys in to help with some depth at other places. I think you do see us hit the portal. I mean, I think Jimbo realizes you kind of have to. Like, when teams like Bama are hitting the portal every year and succeeding with those guys, they might be onto something. Some of their best guys have come from the portal. So I also want to point out, in terms of getting guys back, the only one that we've heard definitively is McKinley Jackson. He will be back. That is absolutely
big time.
Huge. Cannot say how big that is to get him back. Once he rejoined, or like once he was cleared to play this season, against Alabama, he was just a one-man wrecking crew from that point on, and he, flashed some really, really impressive stuff. So you get him back, you get all these guys healthy, get the freshmen that, like, even I've never seen a team with this many freshmen play. Like, I know we've talked about it all year, but when you sit down and look at it, you're like, oh my God, half of our depth chart is freshmen. Like, half of our starters are freshmen, and it's not a recipe for success. So,
well, I'll tell you this, and I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's probable. I don't know if it's going to ever happen. But if we can, by some miracle, bring A-Chain back next year, I will lose my absolute mind. I've often said that he's my favorite Aggie player of all time, and would love to keep him here one more year.
Is that worthy of an emergency pod? If he declares,
yes, I will do. I will do a late kick Josh solo pod, emergency pod if I have to. The A Chain's back, and knowing him, he would announce it at midnight. With just like a
Yep.
GIF of Kyle Field. Like, like coming back. Like
Yeah.
thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. We're gonna turn on your notifications.
Yeah, but yeah, if that dude comes back, we will do an emergency pod. I promise.
Yeah.
Um,
Before the season, I was like, yeah, he's gone. Now I'm like, man, there's a chance. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to leave. Man, it would be something if he came back. But
yeah,
I think everyone else, I think Damani leaves. He should leave. He's played 4 years. Anias, I feel like he probably goes. And then who else? Antonio Johnson probably leaves. I think he ought to. He's a terrific player. Will likely be day 1 or day 2 pick. So aside from that, Layden Robinson, Jalen Jones, Adrian Cooper, I think those guys all come back. And
yeah.
next year we'll have seniors on the team. What is that? What are those?
What?
Just absolutely bonkers. We played this entire season with no senior.
Yeah.
We have one. I'm trying to think. Damani and Anias. Anias got hurt.
Damani and Nias are the only two I can think of.
Yeah, that's tough. So, will be a welcome change next year.
Absolutely.
And obviously, once the dust settles on the recruiting class, things of that nature, we'll definitely keep you guys informed. Early signing day is not that far away, which I just realized.
Yeah,
when
is
moment. I think it's for
December 21st.
21st. Wow. I just typed in early signs of pregnancy instead of early signing day. Early signing day. Yep. Man.
Well,
So,
cool.
That's where we're at. This is kind of our, end of the season type of thing. Obviously, we're still going to talk about the playoff and conference title games, things of that nature. But I would assume by the next time you see our faces, I think we'll have some clarity on the offensive coordinator. So, man, that's exciting. It's very exciting. And I think December 5th,
Yes.
you can officially enter the portal. So we got that going. So buckle up. We got 240 some odd days until we kick off against whoever it is we play. And we got a long way to go, but keep it locked in right here. Of course, as we're winding down, we get 5 viewers.
The algorithm's finally picking it up.
Yeah. But anything else from you guys before we get out of here?
Not really. Go watch Standing Room Only. Highly recommended.
Yep.
That's it.
Hey, Chain, please come back.
That's it.
Yes.
Looking forward to some conference
Please.
championship games this weekend.
Yep. Maybe we'll be in one day. It's like
Man.
what's that Michael Scott quote? I love inside jokes. I hope to be a part of one someday.
Oh, that's sad.
Well, he is Hayden Garland. He's Chase Caldwell. I'm Will Stone. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next week.